Hey everyone, Doomdog here. New console generations are always an exciting time to be a gamer. We get newer and more powerful hardware to play with and new games that go well beyond what the previous gen hardware could do, and software developers get new hardware to bring their ideas to life in exciting new ways. One of the biggest generational leaps has to be moving from the 5th gen of consoles to the 6th. 5th gen hardware could do 3D, but it couldn't do it amazingly well. The PlayStation 2 was much better at pushing polygons than the original, and it ran DVDs. This allowed for much bigger games with much more detailed characters and worlds. Developers had spent the entire 5th generation figuring out how to make games in a 3D space, and this knowledge would be used to craft many of the best games ever made and arguably the best console generation ever. One such company was Insomniac Games. After Disruptor and a trilogy of well-received platformers with the Spyro the Dragon trilogy on the PlayStation, they sought to combine the unique guns of Disruptor with the platforming of Spyro the Dragon into a new franchise that they dubbed Ratchet and Clank. This game would be an action platformer with a big focus on shooting as well as platforming. Today, we will be taking a deep dive into Insomniac's first PlayStation 2 offering, Ratchet and Clank. In Ratchet and Clank, you play as the titular character Ratchet, a fuzzy anthropomorphic creature known as a Lombax, as he travels from one planet to the next with his robot buddy Clank, a small, self-aware robot. Many perils await our heroes as they travel from one end of the galaxy to the next, and you will overcome numerous obstacles on your way in pursuit of your goals. At the time, it was hailed as an excellent platformer, garnering a score of 8.8 on Metacritic. How does it hold up? Let's take a closer look. Ratchet and Clank starts off on a planet called Veldon. Our hero is repairing his ship. We flash to a nearby unnamed planet, and an assembly line is making big war robots. A small one comes out of the line, and he is rejected. This is Clank. He sees a video robot nearby called an infobot. What he sees on it alarms him. A security robot spots Clank and chases him off. He runs off and finds a vacant ship. He hops in it and takes off. Did someone just leave the keys in the ignition or something? More security robots chase him off into space, and they shoot him down. He crashes onto the planet Veldon. Ratchet sees the crash and makes his way over to Clank. Ratchet finds Clank at the crash site. He picks him up and returns to his ship. Clank wakes up while he is doing repairs and startles him. He points to a poster at a nearby garage and asks where the man on the poster is. Ratchet does not know where he is. Clank says he needs the man's help to save the solar system, and Ratchet wants to know what he means by that. Clank shows him an infobot he saw at the factory. The infobot shows a man named Chairman Drek of a race called the Blarg. Their home world got polluted to the point where it is uninhabitable by them. He wants to build a new world by taking the best parts of a bunch of other worlds and combining them all. This will leave those worlds completely destroyed. Clank wants Ratchet's help in stopping this. The man on the poster is called Quark, and Clank wants Ratchet to help find him. Ratchet's ship is missing a key part called a robotic ignition system, and Clank just so happens to be able to start it. How convenient. The ships that were chasing Clank earlier land off in the distance, and Ratchet decides to help Clank. The two hop into the ship and take off. On Chairman Drek's flagship, we see Drek watching Ratchet and Clank take off from the planet below. He says that this could be a problem. I guess this means that the factory belongs to Drek and that the security there alerted him to Clank running away. But there could be many ships taking off from Veldin, though. So how could he know that this one is Clank? Does he have some sort of way of tracking you? Is that how he knows for certain that this one ship is Clank? It wasn't the ship that Clank crashed down to the surface on, so that's not it. Anyway, Drek orders someone to take care of him. They hide who it is, but if you have a keen eye, it's probably pretty obvious to most people. Back on the ship, Ratchet asks Clank what his name is, and he gives him the name Clank when he receives a serial number in response. That's way easier to say. On Drek's flagship, we see him talking to the mayor of another planet. He's telling the mayor to move his citizens off-world before the workers arrive to take from the planet. The mayor is sure Quark will come to their rescue, and Drek laughs at this notion. He tells the security to take the mayor away. Ratchet and Clank head down to planet Novelist. They wind up crashing, but they survive. They need a new ship before they can leave. I like this setup for the story. It's simple, but it works. It tells us that our heroes are no one particularly special. Ratchet is a mechanic working on planet Veldin, and Clank appears to be a mishap at a warbot factory. They meet purely by chance. There is no destined fate. There is no one true hero type of setup. There is no ancient prophecy or anything along those lines. It keeps things simple while giving you a goal to try to achieve. Anyway, on Planet Novelist, the duo run into a plumber. He wonders why you are not on a transport ship off-world. He himself cannot afford passage off-world. He offers you an info bot that has coordinates to another planet. Pay him for it and he jumps down a nearby pipe to purchase passage off-world. The info bot shows two people under attack. They are hit and they have to eject from their ship to the planet below. Ratchet recognizes one of them as a professional hoverboarder named Skids McMarks. Now, there is a second planet to travel to. The two encounter the mayor as he steps off a ship and lands down on the surface. He is frightened of you and he gives you an info bot. It has a commercial for a place called Al's Robo Shack. Quark is in it, and Clank suggests that you go there. There are now two planets that you can travel to. The mayor figures you are not working for Drek and he offers you a ship. Take it and head to planet Kerwan. After exploring for a bit, you find a statue of Quark on a spring that Clank confuses for the real thing. You would think that the spring would be a dead giveaway that this is not the real Quark, as Ratchet points out. Anyway, if you complete the obstacle course, he will give you a prize. After doing so, you meet Quark's personal trainer, a large robot woman. She mocks your performance on the chorus, and she makes you pay for the prize. It turns out to be a swing shot. Later on, you find Al in his Robo Shack. He has not seen Quark since they filmed the commercial. Swing and a miss. He does offer to upgrade Clank with a helipack, though. He charges you for this, so pay him and move on. Shortly thereafter, you find another info bot that shows a security bot on what appears to be a forest planet. Jack is ordering him to chop it all down for their new planet. Fly to planet Iridia. Ratchet and Clank run into the guy that was on the info bot with Skids McMarks. He has not seen Skids in a while, and he offers to be your agent, as he turns out to be Skids' agent, if you win a hoverboard race at Blackwater City. This gives you yet another planet to travel to. Skids can be found a short distance away. He says that he sprained his ankle and cannot get back to his ship as there are sand sharks in between him and it. He offers you a hoverboard if you clear them out. Do this and return to him. He gives you a hoverboard and flies off, leaving his agent behind. Head to planet Europa. Drek is done with one of the planets and wants to move the one he's building to another location. His men on Europa are done gathering trees. He orders them to chop the rest of them down anyway because he's just that evil, I guess. When you find his henchman, he runs away from you. He leaves an infobot behind. It contains an advertisement for a Blarg Technical Research Station featuring Drek. Ratchet wants to go there to look for cool gadgets, and he talks Clank into it by suggesting that someone there might know where Drek is. Head to the research station. Clank heads off into space by himself, and he brings back a gadget called a Hydro Displacer with him. Ratchet starts the self-destruct sequence on a ship adjacent to the Blarg station. This frees an infobot, and the pair make their escape. The bot is a news report from Blackwater City. It is under attack, and the hoverboard races are about to take place there. You meet a scientist on the station. He has a pair of grind boots. Buy them from him, and he leaves. Head to Blackwater City on planet Rilgar. You find a lady that welcomes you to the hoverboard competition. Quark is giving a prize to the winner, and that means he must be somewhere close by. This should also be what you need for the agent to take you on as a client. Enter the race and win it. A pre-recorded message plays with Quark congratulating the winner with what seems to be a text-to-speech thing pronouncing the two characters' names. And you are given a prize that you will want to take back to the agent as proof that you won. I guess the added weight of a small robot on your back does not slow you down on a hoverboard at all. The other racers do not seem to have this, which got me thinking that might leave Ratchet and Clank at a disadvantage. This makes me wonder if this would be easier if Clank just waited on the sidelines while you race. I guess that isn't the case, though, because Ratchet does win this race? I don't know. Just a thought. Later on, you find Quark's trailer. There is a bodyguard out front, and he will not let you see Quark unless you pay him. Do so and talk to Quark. Quark seems to know who you are, and he seems to be well aware of Drek's plan. He says that he has been watching you, and you have potential. He says you have what it takes to be a hero. He tells you to meet him at his secret base, and he gives you an infobot with information on its location, giving you another planet to travel to. Return to the agent and let him know that you won the race. He agrees to be your agent, and he gives you something called a sonic summoner. Fly to planet Umbris. When you land, Quark greets you from a helicopter. He tells you that you need to make it through his obstacle course. If he already thinks that you have what it takes to be a hero, why is he making you run through this? Ratchet protests, but Quark acts as if he cannot hear you. Strange. When you reach Quark in his secret base, he tells you to step into something he calls the Ring of Heroes. Ratchet is skeptical, but Clank is completely trusting. He pulls Ratchet forward into it, and Quark presses a button. The floor opens beneath them, causing them to fall down into the pit below. Quark is trying to kill you as he works for Drek.
I am shocked! Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
He leaves you to fight off a creature called a Blargian Snagglebeast. Kill it. After you do, the two come across an infobot. Ratchet has a major change of personality here. He becomes a jerk toward Clank for a lot of the rest of the game. I will talk more about this later, but he feels overly mean to him after this point. It feels rather jarring from what we have seen of him up to this point. The infobot is of a soldier asking for help in a war that he is fighting. Drek's ships are attacking. Ratchet is focused on getting revenge on Quark and nothing else. Clank wants to help the soldier. Ratchet still cannot start the ship without Clank, so the two are stuck together for the time being. They hop in their ship and take off to planet Batalia. Quark is seen telling Drek that he failed to kill you, and Drek is pissed. The soldier from the infobot meets our heroes at the landing pad and orders them to take out the bombers attacking the planet. He tells you to meet them at the city entrance. I have questions. This is not the same ship that Ratchet was repairing at the beginning of the game. Why is this one also missing a robotic ignition system? Are they all missing this? Does this mean that only robots can start ships in this universe? I did not see a robot on Skid's ship earlier in the game. Perhaps it was off screen? How does this all work? The game does not explain. This is kind of a weird hole in the plot. Anyway, you find another soldier who wants to leave the army. He offers you an infobot for the cost of bus fare off-world. Buy it from him, and he leaves. The infobot shows a scientist talking about a helmet that lets you control ships with your mind. Can you take off without a robot ignition system if you have that? Does it work on specific ships? You meet up with a soldier at the city's entrance, and he needs you to climb a vent shaft to get into it. You cannot do that right now, and you need to come back later. Fly to Gaspar, where you will find the pilot's helmet. Fly to Orxon. This is the Blarg's homeworld, and the atmosphere is toxic for Ratchet. He remains in the ship while Clank explores. He eventually comes across a pair of Magna boots, and you can use those to climb the vent shaft on Batalia. He also finds an infobot and decides that he should hide it from Ratchet after viewing it. Clank returns to the ship and he gives Ratchet the Magna boots. Ratchet knows he is hiding something, and Clank shows him the infobot. It is an advertisement for a vacation resort on a planet called Pokataru. The man in the advertisement says that he has an O2 mask that will be useful to Ratchet. He wants to explore the planet. For now, though, fly back to Batalia. When you get back where you met the soldier, use the Magna boots to climb up the vent shaft. You will eventually run into the plumber from earlier. He was hired as a repairman. His job is to keep the city's defense turrets running, but everyone is too scared to actually work them. Ratchet volunteers. After shooting down all the bomber ships as the soldier ordered, the plumber thanks you. He gives you a metal detector as a reward. It finds bolts hidden in the ground and pulls them out. Bolts are the currency in this universe. Fly to Pokataru. The man from the advertisement greets you. He is glad to see a friendly face. The Blarg have been dumping toxic sludge into the ocean that has made the wildlife angry. They are attacking the customers and everyone has fled. He is closing the resort down as a result. He wants you to use the fighter jet to fight off the ships that are dumping toxic sludge into the ocean, and he will give you the O2 mask if you do. Why does this resort have a fighter jet? Oh well. Escort him to the jet. You reach it, but it's locked behind a garage door. You cannot open it. There is another RoboShack nearby, run by Al's brother Bob. Bob offers to upgrade the helipack to a thruster pack. This will give you a slam move that you can use to open the garage, so go ahead and get it. He makes you pay, of course. Pay him and use the slam move to open the garage. You use the pilot's helmet to control the fighter jet. That helmet is experimental. How does the resort have a jet that it can control? Whatever. Use the jet to take down all the Blarg ships, and the resort owner thanks you and gives you the O2 mask. This mask will let you stay underwater indefinitely. It will let you breathe in deep space or on the Blarg's home planet of Oxorn. Explore the sewers for a bit and you come across an inventor. He wants an element called raritanium. He will give you a mind control gadget if you find some for him. The thing only seems to work to get a discount at the Gadgetron vendors and nothing else. That is useful though. Fly back to Orxon and Ratchet can explore it on foot. On Orxon you find another infobot. It is a progress report from Drek. He found the perfect orbit for the world that he is building. But another planet occupies it. He built a giant missile to destroy it called the Planet Buster Maximus. Ratchet sees how evil Drek is finally and would not mind taking him out. His focus is still on Quark though. Fly to Planet Hoven. You see a bomb as well as the ship that will transport it off-world as soon as you land. You come across a woman running a store. She thinks Clank is adorable and she offers you a Hydro Pack upgrade. Buy it from her and it will let you move faster and swim against currents in water. The ship carrying the bomb is departing and you spot a nearby defense turret. Use it to take the ship and bomb out. You find another infobot, and it is about the Blarg's new moon base. They are about to use it to attack a defenseless planet. Our heroes need to put a stop to this. You find a construction worker that has raritanium. His drill is not working, and Ratchet offers to fix it for him. He repairs the drill, and the worker gives him the raritanium as thanks. Travel back to Pokataru and give it to the inventor. He gives you his invention, and this gets you a discount at the Gadgetron vendor. Everything in the store is now cheaper. Fly to Gimleak Base. Drek is sending Quark to the moon base to ambush you. He is giving him a starfighter to attack you with. If he fails, Drek is calling off the endorsement deal. Clank does not see Drek's ship. Ratchet remarks that you could use a faster ship to catch Drek. Start exploring the base. After fighting your way through it, you find Quark waiting for you. Ratchet foolishly lunges at him, and Quark jumps out of the way. He hops onto a ship and flies off. The duo find another ship nearby and chase after him. Why was there another starfighter right by Quark? It seems that the easiest way to get rid of Ratchet and Clank is to not give them something to let them fight back. But what do I know? I'm not a cartoonishly evil villain. Anyway, shoot down Quark, and he goes crashing down to the planet below. I guess the endorsement deal is off now. While chatting with each other, our heroes come across another ship and decide that it should be faster. They elect to use it to chase after Drek, and they find another infobot. It is a news report. Drek is attacking yet another planet, and Ratchet realizes what a jerk he has been. He apologizes and has a change of heart. This is where he quits being a giant asshole to Clank. Thank God. Fly to planet Oltanis. Clank is struck by lightning, and Ratchet elects to leave him on the ship and go out alone. Ratchet finds an old man running a shop. The bombing has made him hard of hearing, but he has an infobot. He sells it to Ratchet, and it is an advertisement for a mech for self-defense. You run into Captain Quark, acting as a salesman for Gadgetron. He insists that his name is Steve, and he acts like he has no idea who Quark is. Why, then, is he still wearing a superhero outfit? He sells Ratchet a device called a personal delivery assistant that lets you purchase items from Gadgetron when you are away from an actual vendor. Buy it from him. Fly to Quartet. Drek is beating with scientists, and he is demanding a new foolproof plan to destroy the planet, occupying the orbit that he wants for his new planet. On the surface, the pair run into a scientist. He is trying to destroy a machine that is used to enlarge warbots. He suggests that Clank use it to become big and to fight off war robots on the planet. So do this. After accomplishing this task, you return to the scientist, he congratulates you, and he gives you an infobot as thanks. It is an advertisement for an item called a hologuise that is used to make you look like a robot. It is meant to fool other robots. I cannot help but wonder what practical use this could serve, but our heroes can use it to get into the robot factory we saw at the beginning of the game. Fly to planet Calibo 3. Drek is talking to his troops. He is sending them to the surface to get rid of the titular duo. Calibo 3 is where the Gadgetron headquarters is located. You will find an old man here who seems to be the head of the company. He is looking for someone to sponsor his new hoverboards, and Ratchet offers to do it. Wouldn't someone actually famous be better for this? It seems to me that that would be a better choice, but whatever. What do I know about advertising? Anyway, he will accept your offer if you win a hoverboard race against his robots. Wouldn't a robot be able to do it with perfect precision that a human or Lombax cannot emulate? Ratchet is able to win anyway, and he returns to the old man, who is impressed. He tells Ratchet to say a few words, but Ratchet is nervous in front of the camera. Clank covers for him, and the old man gives you the hologuise, which will let you finish the previous planet. You find the robot that serves as the Gadgetron help desk girl that has been talking to you this entire game. The tutorial narrator is literally a character in this game. Clank is instantly infatuated with her, and she has been following your progress. She gives you an item called a Map-O-Matic that will show you unexplored areas of each individual world. I guess she is on your side of this conflict with Chairman Drek. Speaking of which, shouldn't there be governments of multiple planets banding together to fight by this point or something? No? Fly back to Quartu. You can now enter the factory. Do so, and you will find a computer inside it. A keen eye will notice that this is where Clank was created. The computer refers to him as son, and it says that you have done well. There is still more to do. It gives you an infobot. On it, Drek is addressing the Blarg. He says that his plans are well underway, but they need to get rid of a planet where they want their new planet to orbit. It's Velden. He built a giant laser to destroy it, and you need to get on a Drek's ship. As you can imagine, Ratchet is super pissed at this. He is now determined to take Drek down. This whole scene is sentimental, but it is also a little strange. It implies that the computer running the factory is self-aware. They created Clank specifically to put a stop to Drek's plan. If it knows that Drek is evil and needs to be stopped, why doesn't it stop producing warbots for him? How did it know that Clank would chase after Drek to stop him? Did it give Clank the infobot at the beginning? When you stop and think about this, you arrive at a lot of questions. Fly to Drek's fleet, pick up the codebot, fly to Quartu, use it to gain access to a large stash of bolts and an item called a bolt grabber that brings the bolts to you from further away. Fly back to Drek's ship and make your way to the flagship of the fleet. Drek is not here. An infobot is, and it is an advertisement for a TV program that will show the destruction of Velden. You need to make your way down to the surface, so fly down. You eventually come across a massive army in your path. There are far too many for you to fight through. Head to the left and you will eventually find a pad that lets Clank become giant again. Use Giant Clank to fight off an army, and you will reach the final confrontation. He is using a mech. Fight him off as Giant Clank, and he will pause the fight and shrink you down. It continues after this. When you chase him down to the final area of the game, it is time to take him down for good. Drek presses an ignition button that begins a countdown for the laser firing on Veldin. Clank says that there has to be an easier way. Drek says that he is the one that polluted their last planet. He wants to build a new planet that he will own the entire thing, and he will make bank off the Blargian citizens living on it. He will pollute this and start all over again, making bank yet again. While this is a funny plan in a cartoonishly evil way, I do have to wonder about the practicality of it. Wouldn't this be insanely expensive to do? What kind of cash is Drek spending on polluting an entire planet to the point where it's uninhabitable and using parts of multiple planets to build a new one? How on earth is the money he makes from people living on the planet worth the sheer cost of doing all that? This plan works on the surface level, but it kind of falls apart when you stop and think about it. After beating Drek, his mech flies off and lands on the giant laser, causing it to flip over and aim at Drek's new planet instead of Veldin. Drek's mech gets launched onto the planet. Ratchet and Clank stomp on the button and fire the laser and destroy it. What happens to all the innocent Blarg that are victims of Drek's plans now? Does this doom their entire race? I genuinely do not know. What is to be done with them now that the planet is ruined and that their new planet that Drek built is gone? I get that he needed to be stopped, but it makes you wonder about the rest of his race. The falling rubble send Ratchet and Clank flying over the edge of the platform. Clank grabs Ratchet and hangs on with one arm, but his arm is broken. He cannot hang on, and the two fall down to the surface below. Despite Ratchet worrying that this fall will kill them, they walk away unharmed, however. Ratchet wanders off, and Clank sets off without him when Ratchet turns around and says that they need to fix his arm. There's an after-credits scene where the two are watching TV, and Quark, still calling himself Steve, is advertising something for Gadgetron. Ratchet says to turn it off, and Clank does. This is a simple story, but it works. It's set up well, it has a few decent twists and turns to keep you interested. It has a bunch of memorable characters and a lot of interesting locations that you visit over the course of the game. It really does make it feel like you're exploring a vast universe as you hop from one planet to another. Overall, I do like this story. What really stands out about it is its quirky cast of characters. There are really only a few that are very important to the plot. Chairman Drek is a cartoonishly evil businessman. While there is really nothing else to his character besides that, he's a memorable villain. Quark is a washed-up screw-up and a bit of a dolt. He badly wants to relive his glory days, and it leads him down a bad path. Clank is kind-hearted but naive. He is entirely too trusting of complete strangers, and that leads him into trouble. He means well and is likable, though. Ratchet, however, is a bit more of a problem. You like him at first, but the moment that Quark betrays you, he turns into an asshole toward Clank. I get his anger, because Clank did foolishly drag him into a trap, but they seem to go overboard with it. It seems like Ratchet needs to throw insults at Clank's way every single chance he gets for a large chunk of the rest of the game after this. And it is just too much. It comes across as very mean-spirited, and he becomes largely unlikable as a result. It was a common criticism of the game back then, and Insomniac acknowledged this and would seek to fix it in future games. The rest of the cast are all fun characters, though. You do not get to know any of them all that well. They are all one note, but they are memorable because they are all fun for the brief period of time that they are on screen. More than anything, this game's story is known for its great sense of humor, and all these characters are the biggest reason why. Pay attention to the dialogue in this one, and you will get a good laugh out of it. There are other problems though. Drek's plan does not make sense from a practical perspective, as I pointed out. What he is trying to do is extremely costly, and it is hard to imagine being worth the cost for the money that he will make. It is easy to see how he would go bankrupt with this plan, but that's not what happens. You also have to wonder what is going to happen to the Blarg race after the events of the game. They're left without a home. Many analysis videos of this game point out the theme of consumerism throughout, and it is said to be a very prominent and very cynical. This is not something that I entirely agree with, do not get me wrong. The theme is present throughout the game, but it seems to me that it's nothing more than a light-hearted ribbing at consumerism instead of the in-depth commentary on it that others might have you believe. It does have one theme that is very strong throughout, though, and I do not think that I have seen anyone else talk about it. You know I do not like to get political on this channel, but I am going to touch on it here. Throughout this game, there is a strong theme of corporatism and how bad it is. In my eyes, this is such a strong theme throughout the game that I'm surprised that no one has talked about it. What is corporatism then? Corporatism happens when large government has offered protection to large corporations to the point that those corporations have strong influence over government policy and can use it to keep smaller competition down. This game presents the ultimate end of the corporatism road, where big corporations have effectively replaced government entirely. This is an absurd end for sure, and Drek and his cronies are played up for laughs. He is like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. He is evil for the sake of evil with no motivation outside of money. It is not meant to be taken seriously, but it does have a very cynical view of corporatism. After all, he is the villain. Ask yourself this: where is the Blargian government? This game does not even seem to hint that there is one. Instead, Chairman Drek seems to be in charge with his business dealings. He has so much wealth and so much power that he can just push around local governments of other planets, as you can see in this scene in particular, where he is forcing the mayor of one planet to evacuate his citizens before his workers arrive. The game does have a strong political message, and it is that corporatism is a bad thing. This game does not have a perfect narrative. It does have its flaws, as I discussed, but it has a good Saturday morning cartoon type of writing that is entertaining and funny throughout. It should keep the player engaged, and it has a deeper political meaning beyond that. It works pretty well, and it sets up a massive universe for the two main characters to explore in future games for further adventures. I like this game's story. It is sharp, witty, and funny with its writing, and quite memorable with its characters. How does it look then? Well, this is a PlayStation 2 game, and an early one at that. Set your expectations accordingly. This is not going to look like a modern game with high-resolution textures and high polygon count models for everything. The PlayStation 2 was capable of producing some amazing-looking graphics at its day, but the leap from the 6th gen to the 7th gen was massive. Consoles ran at significantly higher resolutions, with higher resolution textures and a lot more polygons on screen. The PlayStation 2 was capable of outputting in progressive scan as well as widescreen, but that was very uncommon during its early days. There are quite a few games on the system that can run at 480p, but this was something that largely came into play later on in its life. Not this early on. Ratchet and Clank 1 certainly does not support these two features, but does it need to hold up? I will say that my method of recording this is to use a PlayStation 2 component cables plugged into a component to HDMI converter. This gives me a clean 720p video signal, but it does force widescreen. For any game that does not support widescreen, it will look stretched. Since Ratchet and Clank does not support this feature, that is the case with all of this footage in this review. If it does look stretched, that is why. It is worthy of note that Ratchet and Clank was a fairly high-end game for it at the time of its release. When this game came out, it was one of the best-looking games on the PlayStation 2. There are certainly later games that would surpass it, such as Metal Gear Solid 3 and God of War 1 and 2. Its own sequels would surpass it, naturally, and those would support 480p and widescreen options. They will hold up better on modern TVs than this game will as a direct result. Still, this game was packed with detail when it was brand new. The character models looked good, and the draw distance was just amazing. You could see pretty far off into the levels from the very start. It was very impressive, and still does not look shrouded in fog like many PlayStation 1 games do. The animation was also pretty fluent and impressive at the time. It is not quite on the level of what Naughty Dog would do on this console, but Ratchet's movements all blend together convincingly as you would pull off one right after another as you play. It is well done. What does hold up more than anything, though, is the art style. The art design in this game is gorgeous. All the characters in this game have a wonderful cartoony style that serve to remind you that you should not be taking it all that seriously, and it really helps drive home how fun these characters and world really are. There are lots of interesting and fascinating creatures that you will come across in your journey, and none of them feel strange or out of place. They all feel like they belong within this universe, while feeling unique from each other. The art design is top-notch, and you should expect nothing less from Insomniac. This is one thing that they have always excelled at. Another thing that I loved about this game is how bright and colorful everything is. Nothing about this game feels dull or drab. I keep going back to this, but it's true. It really does feel like exploring a giant sci-fi Saturday morning cartoon. I wish more games would be this colorful, and I'm thankful that this series has kept this up throughout its entire franchise. It never fell prey to the brown and gray for realism thing that the whole industry seemed to fall into. Thank God for that too, because it would absolutely not fit in with the wacky universe that Insomniac has created here. One detail that is easy to miss in this game is how unique every single world is. No two worlds look exactly alike. Each one presents you with a new landscape and new challenges. It goes a long way toward making sure that this game never feels repetitive, because you are going to see something new in every world that you visit. None of it feels rushed. None of it feels like you've been here before. Every single world has its own unique feel, and that helps give them their own personality. This makes the universe that this game is crafting feel much more alive. All in all, I do think Ratchet and Clank holds up pretty well. The visuals are dated for sure, and this certainly does not look nearly as good as the remake on the PlayStation 4. It's a PS2 game. It's 18 years old now. That is going to happen, but the art design has not aged a day. In that sense, this game is still gorgeous. There are a lot of unique locations to visit in this game, and it is still consistently great looking. The art design of this series is and has always been great, and this game lays the groundwork for a series that would only get more gorgeous from here. How does it sound then? In a word, it sounds great. The bulk collection sound kind of digs into your brain and makes you want to collect more of them, which is the point. It's a good thing too, because you need a lot of them. The guns all sound pretty good for an early PlayStation 2 game. Even then, it is easier to forgive them not sounding as good as something like Black, or something that is not a straight shooter. This splits time between platforming and shooting. Still, the weapon effects have appropriately fun vibes to how they sound. This was the beginning of Insomniac making weird and unique weapons. For the most part, there is nothing too crazy here, but they all have their own unique sound that works well for them. The soft flutter of the helipack, the whirl of the hydropack, or the sucking sound of the hydro displacer all sound great. They're all unique and will become instantly recognizable as you play through this game. It's good work, especially for an early PlayStation 2 standards. Later games on the PS3 and PS4, of course, have more range and depth to their audio, but this was all good stuff for the time. The environmental sound effects work for what they are. There are sand sharks burying themselves in the sand and leaping out from it. There are flowing streams of water. There are sounds of what appears to be oil rigs. When you are in outer space, everything suddenly becomes muffled and largely silent. There are a bunch of little touches that go a long way toward making the world more believable for the game. Once again, for an early PlayStation 2 game, it works well. The real standout of this series is and has always been the voice acting. Mike Kelly plays the titular character Ratchet, and he gives a lot of personality to it. It's not his fault that Ratchet is written in a way that he goes from being generally nice to Clank, but more interested in gadgets, to a massive jerk to him in an instant. But he does his best to try to sell it. He did well in this game, even if it's not anyone's favorite interpretation of the character. It is his only performance as the character, and he gave it his all. David K. plays Clank. He has been playing him ever since. He is a veteran voice actor who lends a sense of naivety to Clank, as well as a determination to stop Drek at all costs. He plays him with a singular focus in this one, and it works well. It goes a long way to keeping Ratchet on track when he is easily distracted by things like cool gadgets and weapons. He does an excellent job as this character here, and he would continue to do so for the rest of the franchise. The real standouts are Jim Ward as Captain Quark and Kevin Michael Richardson as Chairman Drek. Ward plays Quark as an overly confident buffoon and a screw-up whose sense of pride and confidence can be shattered like glass when things go wrong. His performance is full of personality and charm while being quite funny. Quark is a fan favorite for a reason, and this game does a very good job illustrating exactly why that is. There is a very good chance that his character and his lines will get the most laughs out of you. Kevin Michael Richardson's Drek, on the other hand, is played more straight more often than not. His performance as this character reminds me of the brilliance of Leslie Nielsen, where the laughs would come from how he seems to always want to give off this air of professionalism and confidence in everything he does. Beyond that, he is an over-the-top, cartoonishly evil in absolutely the best way. He is a great villain, and this performance has a hell of a lot to do with exactly why that is. It's wonderful. Even beyond that, there are a lot of smaller characters that give great performances, such as Chad Einbinder as the resort owner, who gives him a sleazy kind of confidence that you would expect from a salesman. Once again, it is wonderfully over the top, and he is a fun and memorable character as a result. Neil Flynn turns in an excellent performance as the plumber as well. He may not get much screen time, but the performance is good enough while he is there that you will remember him after you turn off the game. What can I say about the music in this game? This shit jams hard. The soundtrack to this game kicks fucking ass. Every single level has its own unique track, and they all range from good to top notch. There are 0 bad tracks in this game, and they all get you in the mood to jump, which is a good thing because this is a platformer. Just give a few tracks a listen. Yeah, doesn't that shit jam hard? I am not going to say that the soundtrack on the PlayStation 3 and later games are bad, but why did they move away from this style of track? I will just say it, the music in the PlayStation 2 era games are flat out better than the ones in the later games. When they remade this game on the PlayStation 4, it is a shame that they did not remaster the soundtrack for this game, because that is one aspect that is definitely better here. This is an excellent soundtrack. It is filled to the brim with fun tracks that give off the perfect feel and atmosphere for each of the levels. All of it sounds good. If I had one complaint, it is that it could ramp up the tension a little more for boss fights. This is such a minor gripe, though, in an otherwise stellar OST. Between the good sound effects, the great voice acting, and the fun soundtrack, this game is the full package when it comes to audio. Insomniac did excellent work here. I love it. How does it play then? Ratchet and Clank is a 3D action platformer. It feels like Insomniac combined their early first-person shooter Disruptor with the more open 3D platforming of the Spyro games and came out with a new formula that mixes gun combat with platforming. When you are not jumping around levels to overcome platforming challenges, you are fending off enemies with a wide variety of weapons. The two blend together pretty well overall. Prior to the release of the first Ratchet and Clank, there were side-scrolling action platformers where your character would have a weapon of some kind. Jazz Jackrabbit had a gun, for example. Metal Slug was well known for this, and of course there is Mega Man. But combining the two into a 3D platformer was still a relatively new concept. When this game was released, it felt fairly unique as a result. 3D platformers before this always had ways of defending yourself, but they rarely had such a big focus on combat like Ratchet and Clank had. It felt fresh and new. Most of the time, levels were split up into two different paths. One path will be more combat focused with a lot of enemies in your way. and the other will usually be more platforming focused. It will have fewer enemies, but will ramp up the platforming challenges. The end result is that in order to get good at this game, you need to become proficient at both platforming and shooting. The difficulty has a gradual curve for the most part, and it will send you up against tougher and tougher enemies and challenges as you get more skill, weapons, and gadgets. I would not call it overbearing, but this game does have some backtracking. You will go to one planet and progress so far into a level only to hit a roadblock where you do not have an item needed to progress further into the level. You will need to find another planet to obtain that item and come back to progress further. This usually comes with new areas to explore when the game makes you do this, so the backtracking does not feel too repetitive. It does not tend to get annoying. Experimenting with different weapons is encouraged. Can't reach a ledge or explore an area that seems open to you? Perhaps you just do not have the necessary item. Come back later. Different enemies will require different weapons and different strategies to take down. So, play around with the game's arsenal and find out what works best for you. Both exploration and experimentation are highly encouraged, so do a good deal of both as you play throughout this game. There are levels where you will play as Clank by himself. He is smaller and less mobile than Ratchet, and he does not have a long range attack. You have tiny robots called Gadgetbots that Clank can command to fight for him, follow him, stay put, or enter doors that require a certain number of them to open. It is a change of pace from the normal gameplay for sure, but these sections aren't as good as the rest of the game. There is one level where you fight as Ratchet alone as well. When you set out without Clank, you immediately notice how limited your moveset is without his help. Just like Clank by himself, Ratchet is less mobile, but he can still use guns. This does make the game significantly more challenging as a result. The level where you play without Clank can be kind of frustrating too, as there are a lot of tough enemies on it that you need to pick off before you can advance. The game does more to mix up the gameplay beyond this. You will pilot a fighter jet in a segment that feels like a simplified Star Fox all-range mode. You have machine guns that you can fire and missiles. Make sure to hit the crates that are parachuting down to restock your health and ammo. There are turret sections as well. These are pretty simple and self-explanatory. You have a stationary turret, and you need to shoot down enemies as well as incoming missiles. In Ratchet and Clank, bolts are the name of the game. They are the universe's form of currency, so you want to get as many of them as you can. Smash every single crate that you can. And there are a lot of destructible objects in the environment where you can net a few more bolts as well. If you want an expensive item, you need to play levels over again in order to farm for bolts, but a lot of the more expensive items are more powerful and are worth it. For any item that you cannot find in the world, visit the Gadgetron vendor. He will sell you both weapons and ammo to help you out on your journey. And there are usually a few vendors on each level. Don't be afraid to make your way back to them if you need more ammo. Over the course of your journey, you will purchase or find a wide variety of items and weapons to help you out in your fight against Chairman Drek. Let's talk about them, starting with the gadgets. At the very beginning of the game, Clank does not really provide any benefits, but he will get a number of upgrades over the course of the game to help you improve your mobility. The first of these is the helipack. The helipack is a small chopper blade that comes out of him that gives Ratchet a higher jump and allows him to glide for a short distance. This lets him jump further and reach higher places. Later on in the game, it will be replaced by the thruster pack. This gives you a rocket boost to your jump that allows Ratchet to leap even higher and glide longer for greater distances. When you get it, it effectively replaces the helipack, and I would be surprised if you ever wind up switching back to it. The only reason I can think that you might want to do so is if a jump is just too short and you need to leap a smaller gap. Clank can also get an upgrade called a Hydro Pack that allows Ratchet to swim faster. It is useful when you are underwater and are trying to escape something or just want to move faster. But that's not all it can do. It will allow Ratchet to swim against the current as well. This will not come into play much in the game, but you can use it to reach certain secret areas. Explore with it and see what you can find. You will get an item called an O2 mask as well. This is a helmet that provides Ratchet with an oxygen supply where there otherwise isn't one. As you can imagine, this works great in tandem with the Hydro Pack. It allows you to stay underwater indefinitely, but that's not all it can do. It can allow you to take spacewalks, and you need it to explore the Blarg's home planet as Ratchet. Skid's McMark's agent will give you an item called a Sonic Summoner as a reward for winning a hoverboard race. This is another helmet for Ratchet that calls out a mechanical creature called a Sand Mouse. This creature floats by your side and shoots enemies. He is useful in battle, so you will want to pull out this helmet when you see a location where you can call on one to fight for you. There is a pilot's mask that lets the wearer control ships with his or her mind. You need the pilot's mask to fly the fighter jets of the game. That really is the only use for it. You can only use the jet at the resort after getting this device. This brings up questions from a story standpoint, as I pointed out earlier, and it feels like it may just exist to make the game a little bit longer. If Clank can start ships for Ratchet, why can't he start the fighter jet? The plumber will give you an item called a metal detector. When you pull it out, it will guide you to bolts buried in the ground by turning red and getting louder as you get closer to them. When you move it over the spot where they are, it pulls them right out of the ground and adds them to your total. This is useful for getting extra bolts for inexpensive items. When you are in an area where it can be used, there is an indicator on screen letting you know. The Hologuise is a holographic disguise that makes Ratchet look like a robot. It is only used in two areas of this game, the Robot Factory and on Drek's fleet. It is one of the most underutilized items in the entire game. You turn it on to make Ratchet look like a robot and go up to security robots. They disable force fields, allowing you to pass through, pull a weapon back out, and whack the enemies with it to turn the disguise off. You cannot engage in combat while using the disguise. The Gadgetron Pda, or Personal Delivery Assistant, is an item that lets you access the Gadgetron store from anywhere in the world. You do not need to be at a vendor to purchase items from the store when you have this. But do be wary that everything on it sells at an increased price. You can use it to buy more ammo when you are in a pinch, but it is cheaper to wait until you reach a vendor if you can. The grind boots are boots that let you grind on rails. Lengthy rail sections have been a staple of this series since literally day one, And the game will present you with cool platforming challenges with these things, like multiple rails that you need to hop back and forth between in order to avoid enemies and oncoming trains, as well as obstacles in your way that you either need to whack with your wrench or jump over. It's pretty awesome, though you cannot use your weapons while using these. The swing shot is one of the most useful tools in the game. You will use it throughout the game, as you will find many spots where you will need to grapple your way up to a higher platform. The game gets ultra creative with this thing, with you needing to pull off things like grappling onto the same moving object multiple times in order to make it to the next item that you can hang from or swing from. This adds a lot to the platforming, and I love it. The Hydro Displacer is mostly just used for puzzle solving. There are specific areas in the game where you will need to use it to take water from one area or out of a tank and use it to fill another area up. These puzzles are never difficult to figure out, but they're a nice break from pure platforming. You can use it for things like draining an area with fish enemies in it so you can kill them with your wrench, or creating a new path that you can swim through. The Magna Boots allow you to climb up metal surfaces by sticking to them. This does strange things to your perspective as you climb all over winding paths to places that you could not otherwise be able to reach. It is cool, but you cannot use your weapons while using this thing. You can only whack enemies that come your way with your wrench. And there are certainly areas of this game where you will be facing enemies while climbing on these paths. The Trespasser is another item that introduces puzzle solving into the game. There will be certain doors where you will need to use this to get through them. And the way you do it is to plug it into the wall. There are circles of lasers and laser blockers and green spots around the outside where the lasers need to go. You need to turn on all 3 levels of lasers until all of them are connected with the slot to open the door. These start off simple, but they become real brain teasers before the end. The Bolt Grabber is an item that Ratchet attaches to his belt. It lets you gather bolts from further away. You get it late in the game, but it is a godsend when you do. Finally, there is the Hoverboard. You can use this in a couple of races in the game. Ratchet floats on the board and makes his way down the track while trying to pass his opponents. It's simple, but there are boost pads, boxes of bolts, dynamite boxes that will blow you up, and enemies that you will need to avoid in order to achieve victory. What about weapons then? There are a lot of them, so let's get started. First off, there is the Bomb Glove. This is pretty simple. It is a glove that Ratchet uses to lob bombs at the enemy. You are not firing blind, though, as there is a target indicator showing you exactly where the bomb will go. Ratchet starts off the game with this weapon, and it has uses throughout. You certainly will not forget that you have it. The Pyrocider is a flamethrower. It is better for crowd control than the Bomb Glove because you can spray a constant stream of flame at your enemy as they approach you. Once I got out of the early game, though, I tended to use this one less and less. It's not a bad weapon, but there are other weapons that are more powerful that you will probably wind up preferring over this one. The Blaster is a simple workhorse weapon. It is not necessarily the most powerful, requiring numerous shots to take down more powerful foes, but it has a great range. It can be fired quickly to deal out pain rapidly as well. It will probably become one of your go-to weapons after you get it, and it will stay that way for a lot of the game. The Glove of Doom is one of the best crowd control weapons in the entire game. It tosses out a small ball that robots jump out of, and will attack your enemies. If you happen to be standing on a platform above your enemies, you can throw them down to let them do the work for you. Or you can toss it out to take out enemies that are chasing you. This is an awesome weapon. I like it a hell of a lot. The Mind Glove is one of my least used weapons. It can be used for defense if you are running away from enemies, but the nature of it is that you need to kind of lead enemies into the mines. I think the Glove of Doom is a much better weapon for enemies chasing you, largely because you need to lead enemies into the traps. Maybe you found more use for it, but I never did. The Taunter is another weapon that is not particularly useful in my opinion. It causes enemies to stop what they are doing and head directly towards you. You can use it to lay traps and lead enemies into them, I suppose. You can use it for picking them off too, but I really only found a couple of uses for it as I was playing through this game. I will get into that later on. The Suck Cannon is a fun weapon. You can use it to suck up your enemies and fire them back as projectiles. You can literally use this weapon to attack your enemies with themselves. This is great if you happen to run into a lot of small enemies such as those on the Blarg Research Station or at the resort. This weapon is a hell of a lot of fun, but its use is a little limited. It will be worthless if there are no small enemies to suck up. The Devastator is one of the best weapons in the entire game. This is a rocket launcher that has some homing properties. You cannot just fire this and watch it hit enemies. You have to take aim and get a lock on for the homing to work. But when you do, you will hit your target. The range on this thing is great, and it will become one of your workhorse weapons after you get it, even though ammo for it is unfortunately rather limited. The Walloper is another melee weapon. I think most people are of the opinion of why would you use this when you have access to the wrench at all times? It does pack a more powerful punch than the wrench, and it lunges Ratchet forward when he uses it. This does give it a greater range than the wrench as well. It is a more powerful weapon than the wrench, and I still did not find myself using it. The Visibombs are fucking awesome. This weapon fires a remote-controlled missile when you fire it. The game switches to the perspective of the missile, and you control its flight path. Launch a rocket and guide it directly into your target. It is more powerful than the Devastator, and it has a longer range. Save this for when you need to kill something off in the distance, and you will, because there are some enemies that can shoot you from a long way off. This weapon kicks ass. The Decoy Glove is pretty self-explanatory in my opinion. It places a decoy on the field. In this case, it places an inflatable toy that looks like Ratchet. Despite it being very obvious that this is not the real Ratchet, enemies will attack it. You can use it to draw fire away from you and fire back. It can be a useful weapon for sure, but I did not use it much in my playthrough. The drone device basically gives you armor. When you deploy it, it activates a set of robotic balls that float in circles around Ratchet like they are orbiting. It will block incoming fire. Each ball can block one attack, so it never lasts very long. It still can be used to give you more HP. It can also drain quickly though, so do not use it to get careless. I did not use it in my playthrough, but I wish I had because it is a useful item. The Tesla Claw is another badass weapon. This sends out a bolt of lightning that zaps anything within range. It can move quickly from one enemy to another. This thing is very useful to quickly kill large groups of enemies. It's no small wonder that it's expensive, but it is absolutely worth every penny. I love this thing. I wish I had used it more. The Morpho Ray is the first weapon in this series that turns an enemy into a harmless animal. This one turns enemies into chickens. The larger the enemy, the longer it takes to turn them into one, so I only ever use it against small enemies. It is a fun weapon to use, and the idea would be revisited in future games. Last, but certainly not least, is a weapon called the Rhino. It is short for Rip Ya a New One, and it does just that. This is a rocket launcher that fires multiple rockets at a time, and it absolutely destroys everything in its path. This weapon makes mincemeat out of the enemies. It is expensive at 100,000 bolts, but boy is it a fun weapon to use when you get it. This makes everything trivial, including the final boss. It is an excellent selection of weapons and gadgets for you to play with as you platform and fight your way through the game, so experiment with them all. Find out what works for you and what is fun to you. As long as it works, there is no wrong way to go through this game's combat. The levels are designed in such a way that it encourages you to play with your different weapons and gadgets to find out what works for you. The level design is mostly excellent. If you want help with gathering items, there is an easy way to get an infinite bolts in this game. This is one of the two uses that I mentioned for the Taunter. Use the Hollow Guys to approach the lady that runs the hoverboard races in Blackwater City, and it will teleport you onto the hoverboard track without a hoverboard. You can walk along it, make your way to the point in the track where there is a massive stack of boxes on a platform high up. Pull out your Taunter and use it, and it will cause boxes above you to break, showering bolts down on you. They respawn infinitely, and you can get as many bolts as you want this way. You can only do this trick once, though. The game is most definitely not perfect, however. It has some iffy level design. There are some areas of this game where you will encounter large groups of powerful enemies that you cannot take out with a single shot. You will need to stand back and take pot shots at enemies in order to progress. The game slows to an absolute crawl when this happens, and it quits being fun and becomes frustrating then. I wish I could say the level design is always great, but it's not. Exploring Orton as Ratchet, for example, is not fun. It is an exercise in frustration. Beyond that, there is one big flaw to the combat. You cannot strafe in this game. You literally cannot move from side to side and circle around enemies as you play. For the most part, the game is built with this in mind, but you will also find yourself running from enemies and just hoping and praying that they will stop chasing you. These moments would be flat out better if you could strafe. If you could look past these flaws, however, you have an excellent game with good design and fun combat throughout, most of it. The art, music, characters, and story are all great, and they will keep you engaged from beginning to end. Generally speaking, this is a well-designed game, but your tolerance for it may depend on how much it bothers you that you cannot strafe at all. While it hurts the game, I do not think it completely ruins it. So how about replay value then? Well, there are things to do beyond beating the game. Of course, there are golden bolts that you can find and collect. These will require you to be at your platforming best. If you cannot figure out how to reach one, it probably means that you just do not have an item necessary to get it. Come back later. These give you plenty of reason to return to levels. When you collect all of them, you can find a secret shop in the game where you can purchase golden versions of several of the game's weapons. This gives you a more powerful variant of them to try out, which is a lot of fun. Beyond that, there are skill points that you can try to get for unlockables in a menu that you can access after you beat the game. And you will need to farm for bolts to be able to purchase the Rhino. Beating the game, getting the Rhino, and getting all the gold bolts will probably take you 25 to 30 hours. This game will keep you busy for a while. You can also play through it again with most of your weapons from the very start. You will still need to reobtain any items that you get over the course of the game instead of buying in the shop, though. Ratchet and Clank is a fairly lengthy playthrough. While I do not think that it holds up quite as well as the games that followed it, it is an excellent start to this series that very much holds up quite well to this day. The story is fun and funny. The characters are memorable. The music is great. It has plenty of cool weapons and gadgets and a lot of great level design. If you have never played it, it holds up pretty damned well all these years later. It is still an excellent playthrough. I highly recommend playing it. You're in for a good time. This is where I would usually tell you about the different ports of the game and how they might improve on things. And this certainly has a great port. However, doing that for every game gets expensive. I was spending my own cash to buy every single version of previous games that I have reviewed, and that got expensive rather quickly. I do not make any money off of doing this, and I cannot afford to do that every single time. Sorry, but I have no gameplay of any other version. There is a PlayStation 3 version that remasters the first 3 games of the series, and it is easily the best this game has ever looked. That is the version to play if you want to play through this game. It gives you a better visual experience and the first 2 sequels, though the PlayStation 2 version is still good as well. Thank you everybody for watching. This video took me longer to piece together than I was expecting it to, but it was a very fun game to revisit. I hope you all enjoyed this dive into the first game in the Ratchet and Clank series. If you could like and share this video, that would help me out a lot. Comment below, what do you think of this game? Do you think it holds up well? If not, why not? Let me know, and make sure you subscribe for my next video, and for reviews and analysis. I have some big plans for the future. Talk to you later, everybody. Doomdog out.